Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here with Drip and Farm for Poverty, where we don't trust, we verify, and operate with integrity and transparency. Today we got Jeff Booth back on the channel, and he was on a recent podcast on Bitcoin Magazine. And at the end of the clip, man, he shares this like super simple way of understanding money, understanding economics. And I've mentioned this before in different contexts, but I really want to play this from him and then hopefully unpack it. But when you think about it, again, the way Jeff explains things, like it doesn't need to be unpacked, but they're so simple in nature, what he shares with you, that many of us probably overlook it. So let me play this clip and then we'll, of course, dissect.
Understanding. Here's everything that you need to know about economics. Everything.
Can't wait.
We have to create value for other people in a free market. And the more people you add to that system, the faster prices fall. That's it. That's all of economics, meaning everything you've ever been questioning about economics is from the control system trying to get you to not understand something that can be understood by a 5-year-old.
Okay.
And that makes perfect sense when you actually look at it from a lens. Like he said, key there is a free market. And then what he describes Bitcoin as the first global free market. So if you go all the way back to our hunter-gatherer cultures or whatever, in order for that culture to survive and thrive and even grow, people had to contribute. So as he said, you have to provide value for others. And that's also even how nature does it. Like if you don't support the tribe, the pack, and you're just a burden, then they'll kick your ass out. And like if you're maybe injured or whatever, then they'll sacrifice you to another tribe or something like that. It's like, yeah, you're slowing everybody down. So, but when we look at this from like an economic lens, you go back to, farming and somebody out there with a stick digging holes to farm, and then they turn that stick into a shovel, that speeds up the process. Then they take that shovel and turn it into a plow and hitch it to a cow or a bull or a donkey or a horse. That speeds up the process. So all of these things, if you were in that society and you and one other person were competing for selling pineapples or whatever, obviously if the one person is there first and has the monopoly on pineapples, they get to set the price of how many pineapples trade for blankets or whatever. Well, if you come in and start selling pineapples as well, the only way to compete is to sell at a cheaper price, unless y'all go in together and say, hey, we're in control of the pineapple market. Eventually, somebody comes in and says, well, I'm going to take over the market by selling cheap. And the only way they can sell cheaper is by doing it more efficiently or better, right? And then you just expand that out to whatever you want. The more people that come into the market, the cheaper the goods and prices of things fall. Like it just makes sense. And especially when you add in multipliers like technology, when we got printing press, it made, instead of having to transcribe something by hand, it made it easier to mass produce things. You get electricity, then now you can work longer hours in the day. You can use machines. Like any number of technological advancements have an effect that makes production of goods and services easier and cheaper. But yet somehow all of our goods and services over time get more expensive. And that's why he's saying this principle is so simple that it can be understood by a 5-year-old, but yet in our infinite wisdom as we get older, we learn all these other resources and books and knowledge. And then those books and resources and pieces of information are literally written in support of the co-opted or controlled system. So they're written in the sense of like preserving the system itself, not to show that there's another way out. And maybe that's because they didn't know any better. Like maybe it's because, again, we've never had a global free market. I don't really know. I'm going to go down that rabbit hole of how they're being controlled and, Carnegie and universities and books. That's outside the scope of this. But the point is that now we do have pretty much free information at our fingertips. You got a smartphone, you got access to the internet, and we have Bitcoin, which is a global free market. So with that, that means prices should fall forever. And that's like I showed you guys in the previous video. You see the price of houses. You have that one website, Price and Sats. It shows you the price of goods over time being reduced. And then you have that plug-in of the opportunity cost, showing you what the cost of things are in Satoshis. Now, with that, of course, Bitcoin is volatile. So it could be higher one day than it is the next. But when you zoom out over at least like a 5-year time horizon, you'll see that prices do fall against Bitcoin. And that is exactly what Luke is saying. It's that we live in a global free market and prices will fall infinitely against it because that is the natural state of a global free market or a free market period. So when you wrap your head around that and you come to that conclusion that the natural state of a free market is deflation, then you have to also come to the conclusion that the opposite must be true. So if the natural state of a free market is deflation, then the natural state of a, whatever term you want to insert, free, control, slave, debt-based system is inflation. And that is a system we live in. So when you look around and you see things are inflated, then the thesis must be true that we're actually in a control system. And that's where you zoom out or look at history and you realize that, yeah, our money's not backed by anything. So it's not sound money. And someone sitting at the top of the food chain just decide how much money they're going to inject into the economy. And just like when we came off the gold standard, someone decided to say how much gold was now worth. So if that's not control, then I have no idea what is. So again, the only way out, and like that last video I shared as well, is like you have to realize that there's way more risk of not holding Bitcoin than there is of holding it. Like the risk of holding it is just the volatility. The risk of not holding it is slave-induced poverty for the rest of your life. and that might sound a little, tongue-in-cheek, but that is the end outcome. Like I'm living right next door to Venezuela right now. Literally, as I'm recording this video, I'm actually at the border of Venezuela and Colombia. And there's still people literally coming across the border today, currently, because the economy in Venezuela is still shit. So they have hit the hyperinflation point. It's coming down, it's cooling off. It's not as bad as it was 3 to 5 years ago. But that shows you that even in 2025, there are still countries around the world that are experiencing what happens when your fiat system collapses, basically. And the US, being the global reserve currency, has just been able to prolong that inevitable death. So one way or another, that is the eventual outcome. Will we see it in our time frame? I have no idea. But if you know that that's the inevitable outcome, why would you sit there and hold on to the loser any longer than you have to? And the price of Bitcoin is only going up more in fiat, which means it's going to cost you more and more in your time and energy in fiat terms, the longer you sit on the sidelines and wait. All right, so that's all I got for this video. Smash that HQ special, help a brother out, like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, live daily and achieve your impossible. See ya.